Hello, everyone. Welcome to Progress Junior Golf with Live Sport Now and England Golf Young Ambassadors. My name's Steve Jackson, and this is Ian Waterhouse.
Steve, how are you? How are you this Friday as well, not Thursday? It's good to see you.
Yes. So for those who are wondering why we didn't go out on Thursday, it was because someone was watching a European game. And I did see with that particular European game that the manager involved in that particular European game in the press conference afterwards got a little bit tetchy with a journalist asking him some questions. Was that you, Ian?
It certainly wasn't. No, I did have the pleasure, though, of going up to watch West Ham v Bayer Leverkusen up in the East London last night. So that's why, of course, we couldn't go out Thursday. We're going out today instead. So although you did still catch up with our guests yesterday, didn't you, Steve?
Yes, I did. I did all the work yesterday, whereby you enjoyed a nice round, well, not a round of golf, watching the game of football kind of thing. And actually, for West Ham standards, it actually wasn't a bad performance by them, was it?
It was very good. First half especially. Second half, referee. I'm not a West Ham fan, by the way. I'm a Leeds fan. But I still enjoyed the game anyway. And so, yeah, West Ham did themselves proud.
Good. Right, that's football. This is golf. This is junior golf. This podcast is all about junior golf. It's about the next generation of golf. It's about getting more boys and girls playing the game of golf. This is show number 56. It might take a while for you to do that. Yeah. That's it, 56. Well done. And actually, I've been looking back at the different subjects that we've covered in junior golf. It's amazing how many different subjects you can cover. I mean, we've done English golf, Scottish golf, Irish, Welsh, counties, parents, clothing, funding, minorities, girls, ethnic minorities. We've done elite golf. We've done the Golf Foundation, the Faldo Series Junior Open, safeguarding, sustainability, etiquette. And let me tell you, they were all in the first year.
Jeez,
I've not even mentioned the ones that we did in the second year.
Like, unbelievable.
Yes. Now, in that first year, we did do a podcast, though, on health and fitness, but we didn't go into too much detail about nutrition and diet. So we're going to put that right, because we are going to cover that in today's podcast. And as you mentioned, I spoke to the guests about it yesterday, but it's obviously going to be going out today on Friday with the help of PGA professional Stephen Hughes and personal trainer Reese Hemmingfield. And Reese, who works at John O'Groats Golf Club, works alongside the club professionals and works at their fitness and health and diet and that type of thing. So fascinating talking to them. What's your take on it? Obviously, you weren't part of the conversation last night, but what's your take on diet and nutrition, Ian?
Well, believe it or not, Steve, this might surprise you, but in a former life, I used to run a gym. So I find it critical, actually, fitness and nutrition side. I was never the best at, to be brutally honest with you, but the fitness side especially, and the nutrition side, I think a lot of it is psychological, to be honest, because it's difficult, isn't it? It's like you get home after a hard day and you're like, oh, I could just have a nice bit of chocolate or something, or you know, that cheesecake is looking at me in the fridge like it wants to be in my tummy. But you've got to have a bit of discipline. You've got to have discipline with it. But there's a lot of nice things that you can do with it. But has evolved, hasn't it? Massively. You know, in the 80s and 90s, there's no more John Daly's, is there? Do you know what I mean? Like, if you want to make it to the top, I mean, look at Rory McIlroy. The guy's a beast, isn't he? You know, Tiger, I know for all of his back issues with Tiger, but you see, he's kind of started it, didn't he, in the sort of the 90s and early 2000s, where it's, if your body and mind and what you're putting into your body is the best it can be, you will perform better. You know, you just will, in any sport, in darts, but especially in golf. If you are eating right and you're taking it seriously, you will feel better. And if you feel better, you're physically better, you'll play better. And especially when you get to the later stages of your round, and especially if you've got to play 2 rounds in a day, you know, you notice it. We've all been there, haven't we, where we sort of get to the 16th and it's a bit like, that pint is calling me in the clubhouse right now, and perhaps you take your eye off the ball a little bit for the final couple of holes because you're not quite hydrated enough, or that banana you had was 3 hours ago and you probably should have had something else in the meantime, and your concentration is just going a little bit. So it's critical, certainly in golf, because it takes such a long time to play around.
And you're talking, of course, from an adult's point of view as well. I mean, how important it is for youngsters as well to get into those good habits as well, which is what we spoke to Stephen and Reese about. So fascinating subject, and we did cover a lot during that conversation. So really looking forward to that. Right, but first things first. Well, actually, before we go on to the junior golf news, just explain how you can get involved, Ian. Anyone who wants to get involved, we want to hear from you.
Absolutely. As ever, Steve, it's interactive, this show, so please do get in touch. We are live on social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, LinkedIn. You get a hold of us on any of those, but the live chat is probably the best place to do it. On YouTube at Live Sport. Now, there is a link in the text accompanying this broadcast. Give it a click, it'll take you straight through, or you can just scan that QR code there as well. If you comment in the live chat section, we can show it on screen. Even though your interviews with the chaps was from last night, Steve and I are going to stay on and watch that video again, so we will still be seeing your comments. So do get in touch with us. We really do want to hear from you. Whilst you're over there as well, just hit that little subscribe button. It really helps us bring you even more live sport in 2024. As well as that is another link in the text to this broadcast, and it's a link to that man, Steve Jackson's website, progressjuniorgolf.com. Do check it out if you're a parent or a teenager or whatever wants to find a golf tournament for your juniors. There is no better player. I'm not just saying it because Steve's sat there. Generally, nobody else anywhere has put any attention. And of course, the beauty is it as well, Steve, for your website is that I know you run the Shires Junior Golf Tour, but you have all the other tours in as well, don't you? It's not like my tour only, so I'm only going to pick my dates. It's for junior golf across the UK and maybe moving into Europe a little bit too.
Hold fire on that, because this might get mentioned in the news section. Maybe. We might have a little bit in the news section about this. Right. First things first, then let's do the junior golf news then. We did a podcast last week, so therefore quite a lot of was covered in the last podcast. And obviously now we are out of the Easter break, not so many tournaments, but there was a couple of big events. The Selborne Salvo, which took place at Blackmore Golf Club, was won by Oliver Toyer from St Neots Golf Club. Got a photo of Oliver with a trophy there. What a great trophy that is. He shot 66-69 down in Hampshire, won by one stroke from Jack Drury from Stratford-on-Avon. He shot 66, so 68-68 was Jack's score. So well done to Oliver there. The Duncan Potter, another competition, took place over in Wales at Southern Down Golf Club, and Caelan Burford was the winner from Rutland Golf Club, a golf club which you know, Rutland. You've been there before, Ian.
I do know Rutland.
Yep. That was a 4-round tournament, took place at Southern S, and Caelan shot 70, 73, 70, and then a final round of 71. He won by 2 strokes from Thomas Saville from Glamorganshire Golf Club, who shot 68 in the first round. So well done to Thomas for the good score there. And then third place was Sean David from P&K, which is Pyle and Kenfig, if you know your golf, but it's affectionately known as P&K Golf Club, and he finished in third position. So that's as far as the junior golf results was concerned, though. But you mentioned it earlier, Ian, about the Progress Junior Golf website and the events which go on there. And I just wanted to highlight a few of the competitions tours which are taking place over the weeks and months ahead.
So just before you do, can I put the breaking news banner back up?
You can do if you want, yes.
Is this is it?
It kind of. It's imminent possible breaking news. But you can put it along if you want, and then we can.
Okay.
Say how wonderful we are.
I'm going to put it up like that.
Kind of breaking news, yes. So I don't want to tempt fate on this, but we have been in discussions, Progress Junior Golf, with England Golf about getting our website on as the almost like official website out there for golfers, junior golfers, to say where you go and play in junior competitions. We've got some more meetings coming up in the next few days or so to try and get it out there. But basically, we are a website, as you mentioned earlier there, which tells people where the competitions are in the country, not just in England as well. we cover we have events with, the national events, British Junior Golf Tour, the Robert Rock, We Wonders, the Faldo Series, some of those events which, are toured, which take place across the country, UK Kids, US Kids, golf. We've got all the junior events, the Junior Opens, Golf Union events, national competitions. But that's England, Scotland, Stephen Gallagher Foundation, Paul Laurie. Actually, the Paul Laurie Golf Foundation, they contacted me last week to say one of the events that I had on there wasn't one of their official events, and actually by having a conversation with them and saying, and actually we got to the bottom of it, and it was actually it was something which they were involved with, but it wasn't actually one of their official events. It was something which Paul Laurie had put his name to, but it was, so it's great the fact that we had this conversation, and we are working independently. I don't take anything out of the Progress Junior Golf, so it's the whole point of it is just try and get the message across to parents, to kids, to golf unions, to golf tours, the fact that there is something out there whereby if you want to find out where you can go and play an event, go on there, and it's on there, and hopefully it's of use for everyone. And like I say, hopefully we're going to get the national backing, whereby they're going to try and push, in a weird way, they're pushing my website to then push my website towards other websites, and that's the whole point of it. Is the fact that we're all trying to work together to try and get the message across.
You are the gatekeeper, Steve Jackson, the gatekeeper to junior golf. There is the website, everybody. Give it a click. You can type it out, www.progressjuniorgolf.com. There is a link in the text accompanying this as well, where it says visit Progress Junior Golf. Just next to it is a link. Give it a click. It'll take you straight there. You don't have to type it out. Easy peasy.
That's it. And if you are a county golf union, or if you're a golf club and your event is not on there, then tell me about it and I'll get it on there. So we'll get some players to come and play in your events. That's the whole point of it. So that's what Progress Junior Golf is about. This, though, is the Progress Junior Golf podcast, and we cover a lot of different subjects within this podcast. And we've got another big one today. Like we say, we had the podcast, the interviews with the guests yesterday. We're going to be covering nutrition and diet, which is vital in junior golf. It's vital in golf. It's vital in sport. So that's one of the reasons why we are going to be covering it today. And I'll let you take over, Ian, and just explain, or just press the magic button, and then we will be there, and we'll be covering that subject.
We are now going to hand over to Steve. You, of course, with your guests from last night. Again, everybody, just remember, please do get in touch. We are watching this back in the background, so we can see your comments. We want to hear it from you. Steve, over to you and your guests, and enjoy, everyone. See you in a minute.
Okay, so very warm welcome then to the Progress Junior Golf podcast. We're going to be talking about nutrition and diet this evening, and joining me are my experts. We have Stephen Hughes, who's a PGA professional, and Reid Hemmingfield, who's he's my expert on fitness and nutrition and diet and all those types of things, because you are a fitness man, aren't you, Reid?
I'm indeed. Yeah, personal trainer for it's coming up just over 8 years now. And then working in the golf industry for the last year, trying to put our twist on like the biomechanics side of things and helping people's bodies move better, feel better, and also the nutrition side point to get the most out of people on the golf course, basically.
Now, you're not a professional golfer, but Stephen, you are. So you look at it perhaps from a slightly different angle, in the sense of obviously technical side of it as well. But obviously fitness, nutrition, diet, that all's a massive part of golf, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It all goes hand in hand. Without the nutrition, the fitness, it's very difficult to be able to perform and play golf at a high level. But even just a club golfer spending sort of 4.5 hours, 5 hours on a golf course on a Saturday morning or a Saturday afternoon, not having the correct nutrition is very difficult. And of course, in juniors, it's very different.
Now, obviously, this podcast is about junior golf. I'm sure we are going to touch upon adults as well and how important it is for them. But let's start off then. Let's talk about it then, because, if I'm being honest, when I was playing golf from a very young age, nutrition, diet, perhaps even at professional level, it just wasn't even talked about. I mean, I think, but from your point of view, Stephen, you'd probably say that Tiger, when he first came in, suddenly he started bringing those things in, and it's revolutionised the sport, hasn't it? The way that it's looked at.
Yeah, it has. I mean, in professional golf, if you look back just to 15 years ago, you had Tiger Woods and a few other players looking at nutrition and how it can improve their ability to perform on a golf course. And then that's when you started to hear people about having training programs, nutrition programs. Their team of let's say, professionals around them went from being a golf coach and somebody that would help them out on the golf course with the psyche start, the mental side of the game. And next thing you know, they had an extra 4, 5, 6 professionals in their, let's say, chosen field, supporting them and helping them with their performance. And it all links into, of course, the development of how the body works, biomechanical, with all the stretching and the fitness, etc. But also, of course, being able to do all of that, you need to have the food, the correct food put into the body with the nutrition. So it's all changed. Golf in the last sort of 10, 15 years has completely changed. And all of the golfers now are, in my opinion, athletes. They're not what they were a few years ago, where they wouldn't even go to the practice area to warm up. Some of them would go to the club, get themselves a large, let's say, full English breakfast, go to the putting green, hit some putts, and disappear onto the golf course.
And from your point of view, Reece, someone who has been in the golf industry for a few years now, but came from the background of fitness, did it surprise you the fact that golf perhaps didn't have that fitness angle many years ago, and it's taken so long to come in?
I think it feels like golf has always sort of been looked at not respected enough as a sport, if that makes sense. It's almost been, people will go, oh, golf isn't really a sport, golf isn't really about all those sort of things. And I think it's sort of got to the stage now where performance is such a key and important part of golf, and it's even ever since, like, Tiger, for example, the last 20 years, the amount of eyes on golf is more as well. So obviously that brings in more money, that brings in more people, and then all of a sudden people want to perform better, win more tournaments, grow more. So golf was always going to have to take that next step up. But compared to other sports, that like professional footballers, for example, it was almost like it wasn't seen to be at that level. And definitely now it's on that trajectory of just going up. And like you say, performance from a nutrition standpoint and from a biomechanics standpoint has definitely, become much more important and much more relevant in the golf game. And everyone's trying to chase more yardage and be more efficient. And, and that's just, that's from my perspective, even from like working in the fitness industry for 8 years. The thing about the fitness industry, which is similar to like golf and everything else, is always growing and it's always developing, and there's always another study that comes out which supports something else that originally wasn't supported by that something else. So it's really cool to see, and it's really cool to see your amateur golfers at your local golf club actually wanting to take that side of things a lot more seriously.
And inevitably that we're talking about the top level of them learning how fitness, how important it is, diet, nutrition, how important that is. That filters down, and it filters down all the way down to youngsters then. And that's obviously what the podcast is about. It's about youngsters. It's about how they need to learn these type of things. So let's delve deeper into that then. Let's talk about diet then, first of all then, because and we'll start off with very young golfers then, because if we're being honest, they probably wouldn't think about it, So from your point of view then, Reece, how do you deal with very young, it doesn't necessarily have to be golfers, but just young people, and getting them having the right diet to be able to play sport?
I think you've almost got to make it a bit exciting, but really, really simple. Like,
agreed.
At that age, they're like sponges. They're going to soak up and latch on to any information that you give them. So you've also got to be careful, because you've got to make sure that it's the right information, and you've got to be careful with your wording and how you word things to people, because they pick things up very easily. But yeah, keeping things really, really simple. For example, do you drink enough water when you go out and play golf? Like, how often, people go out and like dehydrate and don't drink enough water? It's very, very common. So it's like, for a youngster getting into it, it's like, it's a hot day, to say, well, have you got your bottle of water with you? Have you drunk 2 bottles of water during your round? As an example to start off with. And then even things like, okay, you could start thinking about, well, what sort of snacks you take on the golf course with you? Oh, you don't take snacks on the golf course. Well, okay, here's a suggestion. Do you like mixed fruit and nuts? Really, really simple again. And it's like, you almost don't need to potentially explain all the neurological benefits of eating fats and nuts, which are massively important for decision making and brain function. But it's almost like to sort of help push them in the right direction. And as they get older, they might want to ask more questions. They might want to understand a bit more about it. But at the start, it's like, actually, if you do this, this is going to really help you. That's what Tiger Woods does. That's what Rory McIlroy does. And they're like, oh, I love Rory, I love Tiger. And you want to mimic that. So yeah, I think keeping it really, really simple to start with and just good advice, solid advice is the best way to start off with.
And as a PGA professional, Stephen, when you get those youngsters in, at what stage do you start trying to feed that simple advice to them?
Well, as we all know, golf can be a little bit boring for people to take up the game when they're youngsters. So the first thing is to basically do the same what Reece said: make it simple, make it fun, make it enjoyable. And then once you've got them and you've got them engaged, then you can start teaching them about what they actually need when they go on the golf course. So one of the things that I do with my juniors is when we have a golf competition, especially the first one and the end one of the month, we give out little goodie bags. And in there are, of course, a bottle of water. There is a piece of fruit, normally a banana. And there's also something to take home. And I also say to the juniors, the first person to get in touch with me with the information that was left in their bag wins a prize the next time we all meet together in the different classes. So what ends up happening is they're looking in the bag trying to find these prizes, and then someone contacts me and says, Steve, there was nothing in my bag. And I said, you're the winner because you looked.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
that's really cool.
It's about engaging with them, and I'm a very lucky man. I will admit it. With having my mum as an early years expert, I've always been around children all of my life, from a young age till now, being a PGA professional and teaching them. And one of the things that she always has ingrained into me is whatever you teach, it's something that has to be fun. It has to have a goal to get to, but the journey on the way needs to be as simple as you possibly can. And as Reece said, when it comes to learning new exercises, learning a new technique, learning about nutrition, there has to be a plan put in place that has a start, a middle, and an end. And every single platform that you go across has to be enjoyable and fun. And the main word, of course, is simplicity, making it simple.
Okay, let's talk then water. You mentioned there, Reece, about drinking water as you go around golf. Generally speaking, we're talking about younger golfers here. They're probably only going to be playing 9 holes, but that's still going to be 2 hours on a golf course. And it doesn't have to be a hot day for them to need to have the water, does it, Reece?
No, especially when you're doing any sort of form of physical exercise or just going about your day-to-day life, there's a requirement on how hydrated you are. You can get really technical and think about it that a golf swing is a series of a lot of muscle contractions that happen very, very well timed, very quickly. And water and being hydrated is a vital part of that sequencing happening correctly. Basically, for any young person listening, that if you don't fire them all together at the same time in the right order, you're going to miss your shot. It's going to be a bad shot. You might shank it. I don't want to say shank it, but you might shank it. You might hit it thin. You might hit it fat. So it's such a small margin that water is vitally important, especially when you consider that the golf swing is just a series of a lot of muscle contractions happening at the same time. So hydration is massive, and not just like you say, playing 9 holes, even just going about your day-to-day life, being able to make good decisions. So helps your brain function as well, which is massively important.
And even the weather is at the moment. I mean, I mentioned about a hot day. It's not been hot for the last few weeks or so, but they still need that hydration. They still need that water now. So give us a. So I said they're 9 holes. So that let's say that's 2 hours. When should they be drinking during that period of time then?
Well, something that like Nick and I, my colleague that work with at the golf club, with one of the things that we always like to think about is to try and split things up into like 3 holes at a time. Yeah. If every 3 holes you can have like a big sip or a big gulp of water, that's just a really simple way of doing it, because you're probably going to get through at least a bottle in that sort of period of time you're out playing. So yeah, every 3 holes, big gulp of water, put it back in your bag, and then feel, okay, I can just focus on my golf now, opposed to thinking about, am I drinking in between shots, walking to the tee, when I get off the putting green. Just every 3 holes, big gulp of water, move on.
And what about you, Stephen? As we're talking about a round of golf here. Yeah. When you're doing coaching with someone and you're coaching them about playing a round of golf, one of the things as a PGA pro is you don't want to get too many thoughts in their head technically about how to hit a golf ball and things like that. At the same time, you don't want to overload a child with, you need to drink after 45 minutes. You need to, how do you get that message across to them when you're doing the coaching?
Yeah, this is something else that I've done as well. So if you imagine you've got a scorecard and you've got 6 holes, 6 holes, 6 holes, and that of course is 18. Now, not all age groups will play 18 holes because it's too much for them. It's physically demanding, and it's a long period of time out there, and their attention spans start to drop as they play too many holes. So if you imagine that we've got a little bit older juniors and they do play 18 holes, one of the things that I've advised them to do is every 6 holes, make sure you have a drink. And also on top of that, make sure you have some sort of snack. And that's where the snacks and things we go towards what do you think is good for you, and then we have like a sheet of paper that's the do's and the don'ts of what snacks you should have and what snacks you shouldn't have. We have one guy that always has a massive huge pack of Haribo sweets in his bag, and we try and explain to him that this is not what you should be eating on a golf course, but I'm not going to argue with you.
I think that's my bag you're talking about.
It could be your golf bag.
And as far as the drink is concerned, obviously we've talked about water there, you know, and we remember watching the World Cup a year or so back, whereby there was the famous press conference where Cristiano Ronaldo had a Coke bottle, can't remember which one it was, whether it was Pepsi or whether it was Coca-Cola, and he moved the bottle out of the way and put his mineral water in front of him. There's different types of liquids that you can have. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. How is that with you, Reese? How important is it to try and get them to drink the right type of liquid, not just liquid, but the right type of liquid as well?
Yeah, because that's when you go down the route of like looking at like hydration supplementation sort of thing, like Lucozade and MGP is like quite a popular one, which is, again, it's not to discourage it because it is vitally important. It's like another form of hydration. You need to replace like the electrolytes you lose from sweating and stuff like that. But I think, like you say, when you're going, like, it's almost like you've got 2 options. It's like, do you go down, okay, you want something sweet, is a Coke or a hydration beverage like an MGP going to be more beneficial? It's like, well, the Coke's going to give you a bit of sugar and it's going to give you a bit of a burst of energy, but is it really going to work with hydrating and trying to make you perform better? Not really. When you go down the route of like looking at a hydration drink, again, like Steve was saying, it's that thing of you want it to be really simple. And I could go and explain all the reasons why that's important, but it's almost just to say, actually, I don't know if Steve would agree with this. It's to be like, just this is the better choice for you. You know, that opposed to like, you know, and just say, well, this is the better choice. And like you say, if they need to know that, or parents or whoever wanted to know later on, you can always explain that.
What about taste? Because, you know, water, generally speaking, is pretty tasteless. Whereby, you know, people might just like the taste of having a Coke. They might like the taste of having an orange juice or whatever it happens to be. With you, Steve, is that a case of, you know, almost like trying to convince them that kind of forget the taste? Actually, this is better for you.
Yeah, I won't lie. It is very difficult. Talking to juniors and trying to get them to understand that water is the best thing for them to drink. And another thing as well, when they're out on the golf course, we all know that water temperature rises very, very quickly, normally because it's in a plastic bottle. Cans and things are normally in tins, so the temperatures stay a little bit lower, so they feel when they're drinking it, it's a little bit more refreshing. One of the things that I say to the juniors is, water's good for you, but why don't you mix it, of course, with a Lucozade or something different, which is the same as what Reece said before, the hydro drinks. Just make it a little bit different. Or the other way of doing it is you can now buy little small containers of like basically cordial, hydrate cordial, and you can actually put a little bit into, of course, the water, and it changes colour. It tastes a hell of a lot better, and they actually enjoy it because it's got that link to drinks that they have at home. For example, Robinson's, etc., fruit drinks that they have at home at the dinner table. So the nutrition's being looked at massively in a big way in junior golf, but we're still at that stage where it still hasn't moved on from maybe 15 years ago.
And also, Reece, I heard this a few years ago. I'm sure you're going to back me up and say that this is true. But when you feel as if you're dehydrated, it's too late almost. You've gone past the point of you need a drink. You should have had a drink to avoid that scenario.
Yeah, exactly that. Hydration is like a constant moving factor. It's like I always have like my big like water bottle with me. It's like 1.5 liters, and throughout the day I just sip on that. And it's another thing like which you can go down the route of like setting good habits as well. It's like if you can get people in really good habits, and especially kids at a young age, you want to teach kids good morals, and you want to teach them good things that they can take forward in life, like getting children at a young age to sip on water throughout the day, or like you're saying, like adding in like a cordial or like a squash substance with like 0 sugar, stuff like that. It's just just getting them to constantly sip on that throughout the day is just a good habit. So yeah, but you want to be trying to avoid that feeling of, oh, I'm really, really thirsty and I really need a drink, whereas you actually should just be constantly almost topping up, opposed to like letting your tank drain all the way to empty. You always want to be always topping it up the whole time.
Also, Steve, as well, I don't want to go into too many graphic details here as far as this is concerned, but when you're drinking, it's the old adage, what goes in must come out.
Yeah,
and obviously there'll be people who think, well, if I keep on drinking, I'm just going to have to keep on going to the toilet too often.
Yeah.
As someone who's a little bit older, that can be an issue. Is that something which you have to bear in mind, and in particular with girls, shall we say? Because in theory, boys,
yes,
they just go into the bushes or whatever, whereas it's a little more difficult with girls on a golf course. Is that something you have to bear in mind when you are trying to explain this to them?
Yes, it is a difficult thing because, of course, when you're organising junior events, you have to have, of course, your team around you that are helping you to organise them. And then, of course, you've got volunteers. And a lot of the time, because the juniors are a certain age, they'll have somebody with them going out onto the course, making sure that their etiquette, their behaviour, what they're doing is correct. And, of course, no one gets hit with a golf ball or a golf club. That isn't a great situation to have when somebody of a young age needs to go to the toilet, and they do happen to, of course, be female, a girl, and there's nowhere to go, and they're absolutely busting for the toilet. And it's either, what do we do? Do we call the parents or get them back to the clubhouse in a buggy quickly, or are they eligible to go to the toilet somewhere else? Some golf courses, lucky enough, do have toilets or facilities for ladies to go to the toilet out on the golf course, but there aren't many. So yes, this does open up doors for confusion, embarrassment, and problems that can occur when you are out on the golf course, because, as you know, 9 holes with juniors is probably a good 2 hours or so, and if you're playing 18, it could be 4 to 5 hours, and it's a long time being out there. We've not been able to go to the toilet when, of course, you're recommending for them to drink high amounts of liquid while they're playing golf, which I think Reece will back me up with this. It's something like, is it like sort of 3 litres give and take for a round of golf, given about?
Yeah, it's like there's a calculation for like done on body mass, which you can do for most people, which is also great for juniors because they weigh a little bit less. So it's like 2.2 times your body mass in kilos is roughly equates to how many litres you should be drinking. But like going back to what you were saying, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's like with exercise that goes up and it fluctuates with temperature and things like that. And I think another thing, just you were talking about like the whole thing of like needing to go to the toilet, drinking more water. I had an experience like a few years ago. One of my clients, Dave, he was awesome, he was lovely, but he was a builder and he never drank any water whatsoever. Like, and I mean, he drank no water. It was bad. Yeah. And he was cramping all the time. And it was awful. And I went, Dave, come on, you've got to start drinking some water. Started to build it up, a litre a day, litre and a half a day, 2 litres, blah, blah, blah. And the first 2 or 3 weeks, he was like, I'm going to the toilet all of the time. And I was like, you've got to just push through that. And what happens is your body gets better at retaining water the more frequently you start to drink it as well, which is really helpful. So it's like that thing of your body gets used to retaining water, uses it a bit more efficiently, and then you won't end up feeling like you need to go to the toilet as much, as long as you keep that habit going. If you like went back to drinking no water and then start drinking loads of water again, it will happen. But it's almost good advice to give to like juniors, especially, to say, well, okay, you're going to probably want to go to the toilet a little bit more for the next few weeks, but if you keep doing this after that, you probably won't feel like you need to go to the toilet as much. So that's just a little bit from personal experience with clients and stuff that will carry over to the junior world as well.
And is that something, Steve, when you're teaching them about how to prepare for a round of golf, you say to them, right, okay, make sure you go to the toilet before you hit your first tee shot. So at least you kind of like get that part out early on. Then, if you in theory, you might only have to go and for a 9-hole round of golf, only a couple of hours without going to the toilet, or for a full 18 holes, perhaps 4 hours, in which case then you might be able to do it without having to go to the toilet during that period of time. Is that a part of your, it sounds strange for you to, but is that part of your coaching? That's something you like to say to them, teach them how to go to the toilet, you know?
I'll give you a perfect example. So the Easter holidays have just gone, and of course, me being at Druids Heath, being the director of junior development there, we decided to put on a day camp. So we had the juniors from I think 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning till like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Lots of activities, and the end of the day, of course, was going out onto the golf course and actually playing golf. And the first thing I said to them after we had after we had lunch, I said, right, guys, before we go on the golf course, there's 3 things we need to do. 1, we need to prepare to go out onto the course. So we need our golf clubs, we need our drink, our snacks, etc., etc. We need to check that we've got our tees, our golf ball, our scorecard, pencils, etc., etc. And then the last one, as we've just been talking about, is can you please make sure that you all go to the toilet? Let's just say one child, we got out to the furthest part of the golf course after 3 or 4 holes, and he needed the toilet. and I said, do you want to go? I said, no. I just said to him, do you want to go over there to the toilet, or do you want to go back to the clubhouse? And he went, I want to go to a toilet. I was like, okay. So I had to call my colleague to get him in a buggy to take him back to the golf club for him to then go to the toilet, to then come all the way back out to the golf course. So it was about a 15, 16-minute turnaround from going furthest part of the golf course back to the toilet, then back to the and if you imagine running an event and there was 9 or 10 children that decided to do that, it would be an absolute logistics nightmare.
Right, we've obviously spoken quite a lot about drink now and how that,
yes,
how important that is, how you need to work your way around it. We need to talked a lot about going to the toilet. Let's talk about food now, then, because obviously that is also a vital part of refueling, making sure that a golfer is ready for that round of golf. So just explain a little bit then, Reece, about the importance of food. It sounds an obvious question, but just explain how important the right food is at the right time and how important it is to a golfer.
Yeah, of course. So just break it down really simple. Food is energy. Food is what makes us move and makes us do things and gives us the ability to stand up, walk around, play golf. So having the right food in your diet is massively important. You know, you look at the main sort of energy sources. So carbohydrates is your main energy source for muscle contractions, which is just you being able to go around and hit a golf ball. So things like potatoes, rice, pasta, those sort of things, your starchy carbs, vegetables, which are your fibrous carbohydrates, which are also massively important because vegetables are packed full of loads of nutrients as well, which also contribute towards that. You then go down like the protein route, which is, you know, your fish, your meats, your eggs, those sort of things, which is what's important for your body to recover after training and after playing golf and practicing and doing your lessons with your coaches, all that sort of stuff. And then you've got your fats as well, which are really important for your brain function. So making sure you're making good decisions on the golf course, because as Steve probably know from experience of going around with amateur golfers and junior golfers, it's how many good decisions can you make in a row, really, isn't it? And yeah, basically fats are your food for your brain. So you split them into those main 3 groups. So if you had a meal consisting of a little bit of olive oil, pasta, loads of vegetables, and a chicken breast, that's a pretty balanced, healthy meal, for example.
Now, if there's a junior watching this, hopefully there are lots of juniors who watch this podcast. There'll be a lot of that stuff, and it'll go way over the top of their head.
Yeah.
So, as a professional golfer, Stephen, when you're trying to explain that to them, we said keep it simple, but there's a lot of technical things within what Reece has just said. Then, how easy, how difficult is it to try and get the simple message across about that?
In a nutshell, it's pretty much impossible because the juniors love everything that's sweet. So I always talk to them after they play around a golf, 9 holes or 18, depending on what we're doing. And I always say to them, how do you feel at the end? And they turn around and they say to me, I feel tired. And I'm like, okay, so what did you eat today? Or what did you eat yesterday? And they might go, I had a packet of crisps and a yogurt. I'm like, so that was your dinner? I said, well, what do you put in your car? Or what does mum and daddy put in the car? And they go, they put petrol in. I said, well, petrol makes the car run, doesn't it? You didn't put anything in. You had a packet of crisps and a yogurt, and you're expecting to go out and play on the golf course for 9 or 18 holes. So that's for like the older group. And then the youngsters, I always show them a plate. And I say, if you can have 2/3 of the plate being really good, healthy food, then the other third can be whatever you want. So it can be sweets, it can be chocolate, it can be yogurts, it can be crisps. Um, and that's how I keep it really, really simple with them. And I'll be honest with you, it can be an absolute impossibility with them. I've had children turn up for a competition and they've got a packed lunch, and apart from their sandwiches, every other thing in their sandwich box is just sugar, sugar, sugar hit. Just everything is just compiled of. It's a nightmare, in a polite
Okay.
manner.
Stephen uses the word nightmare as far as those foods are concerned. Just explain. I know. Let's not try and go too technically. Just explain
why they're a nightmare.
why those types of foods are not good for a junior golfer.
So yeah, you can go. Do you know what? It's really interesting. Like speaking to Stephen, it's really hard sometimes to go, like you're just saying about how to keep it really, really simple. And you're right, you've got to keep it simple. You sort of got to think of it of when you have sugar, and probably have your mum and dad tell you as well, oh, you get a sugar rush, you get loads of energy. How do you feel after? Pretty rubbish and a bit sleepy and a bit, okay, I'm done now. Sugary things like chocolates and sweets and all that sort of make you feel really, really great, and then you feel absolutely awful at the end of it. Having the right balance of food in your diet will just maintain that nice energy level the whole way through your round of golf, opposed to going up and down, up and down, up and down the whole way through. That's sort of, I think that's as simple as I can explain it. And Steve's got a more simple way of putting it. But yeah, that's basically the reason why.
And these types of conversations, we're talking about when you're talking to juniors about this, presumably, Stephen, you have to have that conversation with parents as well, because at the end of the day, they're the ones who pack that lunchbox. They're the ones who buy the food in the shop, particularly the younger players as well. So how difficult is it to have that type of conversation? And at the end of the day, they're the parents, so it's almost impossible for you to go around to them and say, look, no, they shouldn't be having that because it's not your child.
Yeah, I mean, I always speak to the parents. Sometimes we have little get-togethers and we chat between maybe 4 or 5 parents, but other times throughout the year we'll get together and I'll do a little bit of I wouldn't even call it a seminar. I would just say it's just a do's and don'ts when we're out on the golf course. And one of the things that do come into conversation is when the children come for a full day's golf, can we please make sure that they've got the right clothing attire for the weather that they're playing in? So be it spring, summer, winter. And then, of course, the other thing is making sure that they always come with enough water, enough refreshments, enough correct food with them, just so they're looked after. I mean, look, at the end of the day, when they're in my care, if they haven't got the right food or they need something, then of course I will get it for them. But it's knowledge, it's power, it's engaging with parents to get them to understand. And it's something that, sorry to say, out there at the moment, I mean, did a little bit of research today and yesterday. If you go out there and you were a parent looking for information on nutrition for juniors in sport, there is a little bit out there, but there isn't a lot of information for you to read. There's not even plans for you to follow. So the only way that you would be able to find out about this is, of course, speaking to someone like Reese, and there isn't anything really out there.
I will ask Reese a question about that in a second. I just wanted to bring one point up that we used, Stephen, because while you were talking about when you're talking to the parents, as a professional, has it almost got to drastic stages sometimes whereby you've almost had to turn around to them and say, like, I can't teach your child until you're doing the right things for them, because I'm almost wasting my time. Has it got to that drastic stage yet?
It's never got to that stage, but like I said with the example from before, where someone's got a sandwich box and apart from sandwiches, everything else is in that box is just literally filled with sugar. I always say to the parent at the end of the day, are you stressed with how the behavior is of this child at the end of the day? And the conversation, of course, has been yes. And I say, well, the reason being is he's being fueled with sugar throughout the day because that's all he's got to eat. do you think it would have been a great idea to maybe put some strawberries in there, or some grapes, or bananas, or nuts? I know nuts is a big thing that people don't want to talk about, because there's so many children out there that for some reason have allergies to nuts these days. But just making sure that things are a little bit different, preparing food differently. But it sometimes you've got to be really wary of what you say, because you're telling the parent to basically how to feed their child, and sometimes the conversations don't go down very well.
So Reece, for people who aren't aware, Reece, we did some county coaching earlier this year with the boys under 18 squad. So Reece did something with the nutrition side of it. Nick, who's a colleague, did something with the fitness side of it. Now that was the under 18s, and I specifically thought it would be ideal for you to come in, because I thought they'll be a little bit more mature. They'll be able to take on what you were saying on board. Your experience, was that the case? And then come back to me and go, are the under 16s, are the under 14s, are the under 12s ready for that type of conversation? And how would you do a different type of talk for those different age groups?
That's a really good question. It's the boys are really, really good. Actually, they responded really well. I was actually really nervous, because I knew that when I was 16, 17, I didn't want to listen to some guy presenting a slideshow on nutrition. And I said that to them as they walked in. I went, look, I know none of you really want to sit here and just watch this slideshow, but we're going to openly have a talk about this and try and chat and engage with people. But it's really tough. I think the boys did really well, and considering some of them were about 15 as well, some 15, 16-year-olds in there, I think they did take it away. But again, like, the same thing applies. I think I would actually go as far to say as it's the same thing for adults. I've personally trained a lot of adults and coached a lot of people, and you have got to keep it so simple. Not everybody needs to know the science and the reason why. Yes, it's important. And if you get asked that question, like Steve was saying, when you have to speak to the parents and say, there is a reason, there might be a reason behind why the behaviour on the golf course wasn't quite as efficient as it could be, because the packed lunch wasn't quite there. But don't worry, here are some really nice steps that you can take, and a few things you can introduce that I think will really help your child's performance. And I think it's so tricky how you word it. And I think as you go down the age groups, I really like what Steve said earlier about that whole thing of having a goal at the end of it as well. You're giving them a task and saying, well, at the end of this, there's a goal to this, and you've got to work towards it. But I think it wouldn't change too much. I think especially if they're going in, or if they come from potentially a background where nutrition isn't at the forefront of their mind, and potentially like lifestyle factors and things like that. I think just start off really, really simple and just understand, well, this is really good for you. This will, again, bring it back to, this will make you better at golf. Like, what do your favorite golfers do? Well, they do a lot of this stuff. And basically just, again, it sounds like a broken record, but simplicity and just giving people a cold, hard fact of, if you drink more water and you stay more hydrated, you will play better golf. Simple as. And I think that's probably the key to it.
Right, I'm going to play devil's advocate, and I'm the devil here, because I'm your worst nightmare, because at a very young age, my diet was terrible. It was I was your typical fussy eater, didn't eat vegetables, ate a lot of chocolate. And if I'd have gone to Stephen's coaching session, if I'd have come to your nutrition session and you'd have said, no, you're not allowed to have chocolate bar, I wouldn't have eaten anything.
Yeah.
But I play golf, and I play golf. I could play 18 holes. I could play, 27 holes in the day at a young age. I could cope, and I'd be your worst nightmare. But if you put me in a team and you turn around to me, and Steve, I use the word with Stephen whereby drastic measures as far as the parents are concerned, I probably wouldn't have been playing golf if I'd have been in that scenario, because Stephen would have said, well, if you're not going to do what I'm telling you, then you're not going to be part of my team, in which case I would have dropped out the sport. And how much of a risk is that, the fact that you could put people off by having these measures? They're good measures, but also, like I say, I'm devil's advocate here, but you know what I'm saying, hopefully. What's your take on that, Stephen?
For me, this is where it's the behaviour of the child. So this is where it sort of links into the development of a child's brain at different age groups. So this is where you've got to then, of course, make it as simple as you possibly can with them. But let's say for you, as example, as a young child, you never really ate anything healthy. You always ate sweets and chocolate and everything else and cakes and loved it, which we all did. I won't lie, I'm the same.
Still do.
Yeah, still do. So in a nutshell, what I would probably do is I would put a plan together where when we're out on the golf course, I would say, if you hold this putt, or if you, let's say the next hole you two put the green, I will let you have some sweets or a chocolate bar. There would always be a goal situation, but it would never be a situation where the child would end up stuffing themselves with sweets on the golf course. It just means that they would incorporate golf and goals in getting a treat, but they would still then slowly but surely being put into the direction or the path of eating healthy on the golf course. So, for example, if it is a child that eats extremely sweet, sugary foods, then why don't you just change it to strawberries and grapes? If you get strawberries and grapes and you put them together, Reese will know this, very quickly the sugars inside both of the fruits mix together and it becomes a very, very sweet fruit. And that could take away a child eating chocolate or sweets like that. So
And
that's...
is it a gradual process as well? You can bring that in. So I'll give an example here. I won't name names of counties here, but there was a county girls team who went along the way to a county week, and the winning team, basically, they all gave them proper fruit drinks. You know, there was no chocolate bars or anything like that. And one of the other counties looked at them and went, right, we're not going to give you chocolates. You're all having that next year. Now, they went from one extreme to the other, in my mind, in the sense of if they'd done that gradually, whereby then it would have been accepted more. And,
Yes.
and is that something you have to be aware of, is the fact that if you bring in drastic measures like that, it can alienate your customers?
100%. I mean, it's the same as if you look at a technical side or you look at what Reese does for a living with the exercise and programs. If you go from one and go to completely other side of the spectrum of changing things, one, it puts people off. It puts them in a situation of the unknown. People don't like that, and then what ends up happening is you do get dropouts. You get people that say, well, I can't do this because the extreme is so drastic. I feel that now I'm not capable in doing this exercise, doing this motor skill, doing this performance of whatever I need to do. And because someone can't do anything, it's then the failure factor. I'm going to fail at this. I can't do it. So they all clam up and say, right, I'm not doing it anymore. That's it. Game over. Thank you very much and good night. And the problem is with juniors, once they get into that mindset, it's very, very difficult to bring them out of it. Adults, it's a lot easier because you can sort of coast them out. You can talk to them. You can find out what their feelings are and they'll explain it to you. Juniors in different ages and different developments of their stages of their body developing, brains, etc., it's so difficult. So that's why junior golf is so important, at making sure that the information that is given out to the junior and given out to the parents is just on point. It's extremely helpful to the parents, but also simple and effective for, of course, the juniors in their different age groups.
And let's talk about the terminology which is used here, because I'll give you an example. This is a story which has just broken this week about different sport, but it's Australian cricket captain Meg Lanning talking about her relationship with food, whereby she was eating basically 2 small meals a day. And the phrase that she was over-exercising and under-fueling, something which we've spoken about here. Let's also talk as well, and that's at the high level. Let's also talk about body image, and specifically perhaps talk about girls here, because we had a podcast a week ago where we were talking about girls golf rocks and golf rookies, and one of the people who was on that show said you have to be very careful with girls of the fact that they feel as if, you know, their body image, they're conscious of how they look and how people perceive them to be. When you're talking about some of these things about fitness and things like that, how important is it to avoid words like, you know, you're fat and things like that? And we've seen that in other sports as well. I think off the top of my head in gymnastics, whereby we've had examples of that, and other sports as well. From your point of view, Reese, when you're having someone there, a junior, in a fitness scenario, and you're trying to teach them the benefits of fitness, how important is it and how difficult is it sometimes try not to go down those avenues which you really don't want to go down?
it's such a good point. And when you guys were talking earlier about like you've got to be so careful with the wording you use. It's, you know, when I first started training people, these are people that I've trained adults, you know, people that were children, like we all were children, and it's amazing how much of the stuff that they were told in their past life just carries on through to their adult life, and they develop eating disorders and body images. And it's such a sensitive subject, and it's so true that kids are so young and so moldable that if you mold them into the wrong things, that can stick with them just as much as trying to give them positive things as well. Yeah, it's a very sensitive and it's a very important aspect of the game. And unfortunately, you know, social media and general media outlets and they don't help. It doesn't help. What you see online isn't the real life. I spent, in between coaching and doing other bits, I spent 2 years working in about 18 months working in the film industry alongside coaching as well. And one of my biggest shocks when I was working on one of the films was the actor walked past. She's in her costume, and I thought, oh god, she looks a little bit like a bit pale in the face and didn't look very healthy, and didn't fill out her costume. And then she went behind the camera, and I saw her on the camera screen. And I was like, that's a totally different person. Like the way that the camera perceives that person is not actually how they look in real life. So it's so sensitive, and like you're saying, like young girls as well, where body image is so almost high, and it's always compared in media. This actress was overweight at this point, and she was at this point, and using the right terminology and the right words. I think, from my perspective, I want to give kids at that age, and boys and girls, as much positive experience in those gym environments as possible. And it's down to our generation coaching the next generation to show them the right things and the right way to talk about people and the right way to tackle these problems, not comparing themselves to other people or shaming other people for the way they look. It's in such a sensitive place, and it is really, really tricky, especially when I've seen how some of those children grow up and how it can affect them in later life. And just a point really here,
so I guess in recently, quite a lot of your coaching is probably one-on-one with you, Stephen.
Yeah.
When you're doing junior coaching, it's probably in group sessions there. So therefore, probably even more so, you have to be careful about what you say, because then it's in front of other people as well.
Yeah. When you're teaching juniors in different age groups, there's always going to be somebody that will say something in the group, and you've got to pick up on it quite quickly, and you've got to know how to deal with that person, as in the young junior, and explain to them that the words that they're using and the way that they're acting and etc is not acceptable. And again, it's like we said before, it can lead back to how they've been brought up or how they perceive themselves when they're on the golf course. It's just, in my opinion, in coaching juniors in groups or even one-to-ones, it's all about how you talk to them. Like, for example, if you're teaching youngsters, you get down to eye level with them, and you talk to them and you explain to them that the behavior that they're having at the moment is not acceptable. And would you be like this at home with your parents or with your grandpa or grandma? Older children, would you use that, that language, or would you act like that if you were out with your friends or out with another parent going out somewhere? And it is something that, sorry to say, and this is something that I'm always going to talk about, social media. There's so many children now under the age of 12 that have mobile phones, and the amount of stuff that they see on Instagram, Facebook, etc, and they perceive that to be real life, and it's nowhere near to what actually is. And that's where some of the behavior sets in. That's where we were talking about how you mold them and what they do in life, etc, and then moving on to sports, and then moving on to careers. They do sometimes get set in their ways, and that's just how they are, and that's how they're perceived by other people other people around them, and then of course also their own parents. And it is a difficult thing to deal with, but in my opinion, if it's dealt with straight away at the core, as soon as it happens, it then hopefully but surely will be something that will be taken out of the sport, or get taken out of their let's say their area of whatever they're doing, may it be at school, may it be other sports that they're playing.
we are coming towards the end of the podcast now, but there's just one more subject I just want to talk about as well, is different ethnicities as well, and different cultures as well, the way that they deal with food as well, because they're excuse my ignorance, I don't know exactly which religions there are, but the ones whereby they have to go 10, 12 hours during a day feasting. So how do you fit food and nutrition in that kind of program, whereby, you know, if they're not allowed to eat during that period of time, then what do you do? What have you faced that, Reece, whereby you've had that conversation with someone and you've had to say, or they've come back to you and said, sorry, I don't eat that time of day?
Yeah. I went to school with someone. I went to school with a few guys that had to do Ramadan and things like that, and it was always. I think when you're a child at that age, you sort of don't really understand. You know, you're a bit like, oh, why are they not eating? And I think that's when it comes down to like being respectful as well, massively, to people's religions, and almost educating yourself as well. I haven't had to face that with anyone coaching myself personally, so it's really difficult. But I think if I was, the way I would tackle that is to ask questions, to learn as much as possible, and to be basically extremely respectful of that side of their religion, and just try and implement advice where you can. But I think at the end of the day, if that's somebody's religion and that's their belief, you've got to be backing that 100% and go, well, that's 100% your belief. I'm here to support you. I'm here to help you. If you need me, if you need to talk, if you need anything, you've just got to let me know.
And the same type of thing as well, Stephen, as well, is that not just religion as well, but also dietary requirements. So, for example, I'm a celiac. I need to have gluten-free food. My son's dairy allergy, so he needs to have dairy. So, therefore, some of the things which you would want in my diet, Reece, I cannot eat, you know, or I have to go with a slightly different version of what you want me to eat. Is that part of the process whereby you, as a coach, Stephen, you have to be very wary of the different requirements of the different players you're dealing with?
Yeah, it's very true. This is one of the reasons why now, with golf developing and becoming what it's turning into, this is where having somebody like Reece on board in let's say, your group of expertise and what you're offering as packages, selling them to, of course, members of golf clubs and people starting up the game, etc., is we would be asking, what is a supplement that he can have or she can have that is going to help them with X, Y, and Z. And it's the same with everything. It doesn't matter sort of what you are allergic to or what you can't have. It's finding a path and then supporting them and explaining to them why they need this to help them with their process. And as I said at the start of everything, the start of the podcast, somebody wants to get better at golf, which is understandable, but their body physically can't move in them positions, and to do that they need to improve their body, and the only way they can do that is by, in a nutshell, seeing Reece.
Okay, well, without blowing his own trumpet, then, Reece, just explain, if someone does want to get involved with you or any fitness expert, your advice to them, how would they go about doing that then?
I think the first thing is, like, you've got to really get along with the person that you want to work with. The same with, you've got to agree with Steve, is everybody's got their own coach. People will love coaching with myself and they might hate coaching with me and want to train with Nick. So I think it's always about trying to build those relationships. That's one thing I'm really, really big on, is I don't want to just take somebody's money for a session. I want to get to know somebody before. And Nick always drills me for this. He's like, you do way too much for free. You need to start actually trying to make some money out of this sort of things. I think the best big advice is find somebody you actually get along with, have conversations with somebody that's actually interested in you as a person. What are your habits, what are your passions, and what you want to achieve for, and then, like Steve was saying, is you want to be setting like a pathway in order to get to those goals, basically. So yeah.
And from your point of view, Stephen, you specifically wanted to come on this podcast because you wanted to talk about this subject. So, but as a professional golfer, then, someone wants to go to their pro golfer and wants to talk about this subject, what advice would you give to them? Or if there's a professional watching this, what advice would you give to the professional if someone does come to you?
In a nutshell, if anybody comes to you and wants to get better at golf or wants to learn new skills and improve in areas, it's all about having, as Reece said before, having that relationship, building that relationship. But to do that, you need to learn about the person. So in my opinion, before you even start your lessons, you have that induction, you have that meetup, you have that assessment, you talk, you get to know each other, you ask about goals, you ask about what do you want to fulfill in the future in the sport that of course that you want to play. I know that a lot of this doesn't go on, but it's something over the last sort of 5 to 10 years, it's started to come into golf a lot more. And yes, we can do as PGA professionals, we know the swing inside and out. We can give you simple drills to practice to make you better, but that's just your technical side of your swing. That's not actually finding out what you want to do as a person and what you want to do moving forwards in your goals, in your journey, and what you actually want to achieve. And once you do this, it makes people very relaxed. It helps you to get to know them. It builds that relationship. And then you end up, in my opinion, okay, they're a client, but you do build a friendship. And that friendship is something that is brilliant because you can send messages to them and say, look, I've not seen you at the gym for the last 4 days. Is everything okay? Are you slacking? I've not seen you for a couple of weeks. You've not sent me anything about your swing. Are you struggling? Do you need a little bit more help? And I know that some people might think that that's a little bit too pushy, or they might feel that it's a little bit of over the top service. But at the end of the day, you're there to provide a service to them to make them better in what they want to do. And if you do it the correct way, one, you'll always be busy with clients and you'll always have loads of people to contact. But secondly, you're going to have a lot of people talking about how you develop them in becoming better in the sport that they want to play, which in my opinion is at the end of the day the goal that they are there for, and the goal that you're actually working towards.
That's perfect. That is literally it. Yeah.
Perfect way to finish the podcast, I suppose. We will be talking. We're going to do a podcast. We've done one previously on fitness, specifically on fitness. And we will do another one on fitness. We've touched more on diet and nutrition today, which obviously all contributes to better fitness. But we are going to be doing a podcast on specifically on getting fit for golf, and I'm sure we'll probably come back to nutrition and diet when we talk about that in the weeks and months ahead. But just to give you a heads up on what podcast we've got coming up, we're going to be doing one on mental strength in junior golf. We're going to be doing one on junior golf clothing, the cost of that, sponsorship as well in junior golf, which perhaps a few years ago wouldn't have been a part of junior golf at all. In fact, really wouldn't have been a part of amateur golf, but certainly is coming more and more into it in years to come. We're going to do one on caddying as well, which is going to be an interesting one, how to caddy with a junior golfer. And we're also going to do one, particularly with the England Golf Young Ambassadors in Mott, we're going to do one on volunteering as well. And that can be people volunteering to help with the junior golf and juniors helping as well to volunteer at their own golf club as well. So different podcasts that we've got coming up over the weeks and months ahead. So I hope you could be able to join us then on the Progress Junior Golf podcast. Thanks very much for Stephen coming on this evening. Thanks very much for Reese as well. And we shall see you soon. Thanks a lot.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.